Very good evening. Namaskar. Om Jai Shri Krishna Guru. Thank you once again for joining me today for Sai Sat Charitra Parayan. Om Shri Mahaganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswataya Namaha. Om Shri Guru Dattatreya Namaha. Om Shri Mahalakshme Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Sai Satcharitra, the life and teachings of Sai Baba. We are doing chapter 3. We are continuing from where we stopped yesterday, from verse 128. As it is, the Rohila had boundless enthusiasm, and now to add to it, this encouragement from Baba. No wonder he ventured, unrestrained, on his loved recitation till his throat was parched. The people were all simply amazed. How forgiving was Baba! What would have normally brought on a splitting headache engrossed him so deeply. Oh, how horrifying was that shouting! It was a wonder his throat did not dry. As for Baba, his insistence was only this: do not intimidate the Rohila. To look at the Rohila was as a madcap. But what veneration he had for Baba! And how happily he recited the Kalmas, in strict conformity with his religion. Who is bothered whether the voice be melodious or harsh? Each time the inspiration seized him, he would break out into a chant of Allah. With the natural gift of a rattling voice, the Rohila regularly and unceasingly kept on proclaiming loudly Allahu Akbar and the Kalmas with great pleasure. Baba shrank from being defiled by those who had a loathing for God's name, and hence he said, why drive away needlessly this Rohila who is so fond of singing God's praises? It is so very true. The sages and the saints or the gurus do not bother about how a person's behave, how an individual behaves or he speaks or he even conducts himself. What they care about is how much devotion does he have for the divine. It is not the way you conduct. It is not the way in the manner you display your nature. It is in the manner you express your love for the divine. This is what the divine always look for. We human beings go by how somebody behaves or how somebody speaks. We go as per their nature. The nature is so much jarring on our face. But we fail to see beyond that nature. What we must practice here and what Baba is teaching is, don't look at how he's reading or how loud he is or how he's shouting, but look at how beautifully he's reciting the Kalmas, how sincere he's about his own religion. That is important. Can you see God in it? I see God in it. That is what Baba is saying. Why are you people giving importance to how he's speaking? That doesn't matter. So always know that. See God in everybody. This is a very important lesson. We should see the devotion that person has for the divine. So the great gurus always look at the heart of that individual. It's not about what the body, how the mind behaves. See, everybody is born with an inherent nature and they cannot overcome their nature. So we must just let it be. We need to have patience and faith in them, in the divine. There is a reason why the divine has put these people with them or in their life, with their life. There is an association. We don't know that association because we are not aware of the past, the present or the future lives of any individual. So let us not get indulged in judging anyone for who they are. Just see God in them. This is a very important lesson. It is easy said than done. So start seeing God in everybody and you will experience life is so beautiful. Where my devotees are singing my praises, I am present there, wide awake all the time. Such is the utterance of God to prove the truth of which Baba gave this experience. One who subsisted on alms, dry food with or without gravy, and sometimes went without food altogether, to such a Rohila whence a wife, and therefore how will she go to Baba? pauper that the Rohila was, even a paisa was precious to him. What then of his marriage and of his wife? Moreover, Baba was a celibate since childhood. Obviously, the whole story was fictitious. Let him, Rohila, then cry himself hoarse. Baba was so very happy with the kalmas that day and night he listened to them, sleep being poison compared to them. Where the superior wisdom of kalmas and where the hollow complaints, petty grievances of the villagers. It was really to bring the villagers to their senses that Baba made all this pretense. It's again very unique and strange thing here. It is explained. How the sages behave and why they do certain things is never understood. It is beyond the human mind's ken and understanding. But we think we are all knowing. We try to judge based on what we see. See, what you see is basically nothing but it's a maya. It's an illusion that the divine puts so that you and everybody around can get a lesson. And those lessons are extremely profound. And that is very important for you to understand. What is the lesson that I need to learn? Why am I being taught this lesson? Why is my mind agitated when somebody speaks in some way? The most important thing is we need to overcome our mind, senses and this bodily nature that we carry and even the bodily afflictions that we have. We are born with our tendencies from many lives of ours. We have gathered, we have accumulated. So we need to overcome all of them. So these tests are put, so these experiences are created so that we get that lesson. Most important lesson here is do not judge and keep your mind and senses in control. Why should your senses react? Why should you bother about how is another person behaving? Can you focus what is there in your plate? Why are you looking it into somebody else's plate? Don't. So this is what Baba is trying to say. He's giving a lessons to everybody, the villagers especially here, so that they understand how to stay calm and how to have faith and patience in the divine. Such indeed was his import. In this way, Baba clearly brought it to the perception of all that I like the company of the Rohila because he loves God's name. To one who sees only the divine spirit in the perceiver, the object of perception and the act of perceiving are all equal. A Brahmin or a Pathan or anyone else. It is extremely true. The divine beings do not differentiate anybody, any human beings based on their caste, creed, high society, low society, they have educated, non-educated. They do not look at any of those things. They don't care about all of this. All they care about is how much is that individual devoted to them, devoted to the God. That is all they look at. They look at that pure heart. Even if you take a name, a word, Hari, that is what matters. It doesn't matter what that person has done. There's a very beautiful story my Guruji has taught. And this is very profound. The two individuals, in that one person, two friends, one person goes to temple very religiously, and the other person goes and visits a prostitution. He's going to a prostitute, and he's saying, I want to enjoy. And the other one of his friend goes to the temple, and he's sitting there to do some bhajans. But the friend in the temple is thinking, oh my God, what am I doing here sitting in the temple? My friend over there is having fun. And that friend of his is thinking, I'm such a bad person. I'm sitting here and enjoying these tamasic things. But look at my friend. He's taking the name of the God. He's thinking about the God. I should also think about God. Who do you think is going to go to the heaven? Is the one who is in the temple or is the one who's with the prostitute? Of course, yes, the one who's with the prostitute, because he's saying, my friend is thinking about God. I'm ashamed of myself. That little bit, the thought that I should think about God is more than enough for you to get redeemed. But for the one who's supposed to be on the path of, godliness is thinking about the worldliness. Can you imagine how contradicting it is? So this is the way the divine works, and you cannot understand how they judge and who is deserving in it. So this is a very important lesson to understand. It's what your mind thinks. It is not that he's a sinner, but he's thinking that I want to also think like my friend, about God. That is the beauty of it. Now listen. to the sweet words that came out of Baba's mouth on an occasion when the midday aarti was just over and people were about to go home to their respective houses. Wherever you are, whatever you do, always remember this one thing well, that I come to know all the time and in detail what you are doing. And I, about whom you have such an experience, I am nearest to all and dwell in everybody's heart. I travel everywhere and I am the Lord and Master of all. I fill this entire creation of beings, both animate and inanimate, and yet remain. All this is the divine scheme, in which I am the principal manager of the strings. I am the mother of this universe and all the beings therein. I am also the point of equilibrium of the three gunas. I alone provoke all the senses, and the creator, the sustainer and destroyer of this universe am I too. He who turns his attention to me can have no difficulties whatsoever, but he who forgets me will be ruthlessly whipped by Maya. And this is a very important thing that he's saying here, very profound. See, he's everything. He's the master of the three gunas. He's beyond the mind, body, senses. You can name it. He's the Brahman himself. He's the divine. He's the Lord Almighty. Everything is him. He knows what is going on in your mind. You don't even have to open your mouth to say. Such a divine being he is. But he's not going to save those who are lost to the material worldly, who's lost to the senses, who are lost in this, enjoying the sensual pleasures in this world. He cares about how much devotion do you have, how sincere and how much you seek for God. Your seeking is what he cares about. That little love for God is what he cares about. But if you pay no heed, then you're lost to the illusions of Maya. And then you have to get into that, the muck of birth and death. And you're constantly going to live in this muck of this material worldly existence. Why do you need it? Listen, today you have an opportunity to take the name of the God. Give that little bit of your life and give that little time for yourself to think about the divine. Get out of this material worldly bondage that we all have been suffering for many, many lives of ours. He who turns his attention to me have no difficulties. But he who forgets me will be ruthlessly whipped by Maya. When you take the name of the divine, all your difficulties will vanish. The divine takes care of your life. This is what he's saying here. And this is the promise he's even made in few chapters. And in the many chapters that's coming in, you'll see Baba telling that many times. And that is the faith you need to have in the divine. This visible world is my, This visible world is my own manifestation, be it a worm or an ant, a pauper or a king. This immeasurable creation of the movable and the immovable is really Baba's very self. How interesting, how significant is this hint. Between God and the saints, there is no separateness. As their incarnation on this earth is purely for the uplift of both the animate and inanimate creations equally. The divines manifest on this planet Earth for a certain reason. The most important reason is to teach and put you on the path of the divine or on the path of dharma, which means for those of his disciples and devotees, those who are the true seekers, they come here to guide them, to show the path, how to attain the divine. They are not here to enjoy the material worldly, existence. They don't care about it. They don't even need anything. They are the desireless being. They're the self themselves. But they come because of the love of their devotees. They care about their devotees. So they come here and take this, arduous, painful burden on their shoulders and then redeem you from all your karmas so that you attain the divine. It is their love, that motherly love. They are the ocean of compassion. So make use of every opportunity that you get to evolve on the path of dharma and spirituality. And should one want to be absorbed totally at the Guru's feet, he should go on singing the praises of the Guru or perform a kirtan of the Guru's story, or at least listen to such story with a devout mind. Exactly what we are doing. Here we are talking and praising about the greatness of the Guru. You can even go sing kirtans, you can sing bhajans, whatever that you can. You don't need to have a beautiful voice, you don't need to know. Even whatever that comes to your heart, please sing. Do a simple prayer wherever you are. but take the name of the divine. And especially praising the Guru and surrendering at the Guru's feet is the highest that you can ever do in life. You can redeem yourself, and this one life that you have, the God-given opportunity, redeem yourself from the rebirths that you've been going through for so many million lives. And seeker should so listen to it that the distinction between the listeners and what he is listening to will dissolve, and as he passes into a state of unmana, he will experience the presence of God Almighty. While fully engrossed in the day-to-day worldly life, if perchance a saint's story comes to the ear, it, by its very nature, benefits the listener without an effort on his part. See, this is so beautiful. If you, by chance, are listening to these lovely words of the divine, of Sai's Leela, that itself is a purification for you. So go on, listen intently, and even that little bit, just absolve within yourself and revel in that. If then it be heard with a devout heart, how great a merit will come to hand. Let the listeners think of this in their minds for their very own benefit. Absolutely. Even with a little pure heart, if you have the devout mind, how beautiful it would be, how much more benefit you will reap. So please listen intently. By that means, a fondness and love for the Guru's feet will be cultivated, and gradually a state of highest well-being will set in. No other discipline or religious observances will be necessary. The highest good of human life will thus be attained. See, to grow a fondness for the Guru's feet is not so easy. First, you need to show that you're deserving, and deserving comes with self-effort. If you do not put your self-effort, if you do not put your effort, how do you think then the Guru or the God will give you the grace? But first you have to put that effort, take that initiative and make an effort to listen or even sing the praises or just take the name of the God. Once you do that from your innermost being, then the Guru himself grants the devotion to his feet. And that's the ultimate thing that you can ever accomplish in this life or any life of yours. When the mind is thus disciplined, the longing for listening to the tales will grow, and the bondage of the sensual pleasures will break away of its own. A state of supreme joy will then be experienced. Hearing Baba's sweet words, I resolved in my mind that from then onwards, I would give up serving men and devote myself only to the service of the Guru. And yet, in my heart, there was a restlessness, a longing. Some job he will get. Was that what Baba had said in reply? Will I get a proof of it? That Baba's word will be in vain was something that usually did not happen. And so, maybe I will once again be connected with serving men. But it will never bring me any real benefit. Self-prompted as Anna's question was, yet it is not as though I did not desire it. And this desire of mine was not prarabdha. Inwardly, I too felt that I should get a job as a means of supporting my family, and Sai tempted me all the while, pointing his finger at the piece of jaggery as he administered a portion to me. I drank the potion in the hope of the jaggery, and by my good fortune, I was satiated. Quite unexpectedly, I got a job, and in my greedy desire for money, I accepted it. This is a very beautiful way of the divine testing you. What is that you're actually going to lean? Are you going to run behind your desires, or are you going to go as per what the divine has planned for you? So this is between what you want and what the God wants to give you. There is two different things. So this is a very tricky state that the divine will always put you into. But from your heart, say that, let me take the decision which you will. And when you put the faith in the divine, your heart will open up and give you that right answer. So trust that answer. But how much can one eat even of a sweet? A point must come when the jaggery also repels. And then it was that the nectar of Baba's teaching tasted so truly excellent. The employment was not of long duration and went away the way it came. And Baba put me back in my place, much to my enjoyment of my true and lasting happiness. See, this is very interesting. It's happened to me as well. Many years ago, my Krishna Guruji was telling me, you should give up this corporate life and you should do something what you are capable of. Sometimes I believe I also gave into my mind's desire. I wanted to live abroad. I'm like, I don't want to come to India. I want to live abroad. These were my, the desires that was going within my mind. My mind was in the dichotomy. I didn't know what I wanted also. But when, like here, he's talking about how the divine gives you a job and then brings you back at the right time. Similar thing happened to me. But today I am so very grateful that I am today back in India, not only doing my dharma, but also serving the purpose of my existence. Today I am able to focus on my spiritual path, living with my Guruji and serving him, because that's the only way to evolve and redeem, from my humanly existence in this material world, to evolve to becoming the divine. And until you don't serve your Guru, you cannot attain that. Service unto the master is the highest devotion and service that you can ever do to anybody in this world. Lord Sri Krishna himself has said that one who surrenders to the feet of the Guru, I will touch the feet of such, I will touch the feet of that devotee. This is what Lord Sri Krishna also has said. So Guru has been given that highest importance. And if you have this Guru, please don't leave his feet. Always catch hold of his feet and evolve in your life. And he will help you cross over this ocean of material worldly existence. The entire creation of animate and inanimate things is truly a manifestation of God. But the Almighty is beyond this universe, the highest supreme being. God is not separate from the world, but this universe is distinct from God. From the time of its creation, the universe is filled with animate and inanimate things, whose main base is God. Know that there are 8 places of God's worship, such as the idol, the sacrificial altar, and others. But of them all, Guru is the greatest. Like I already said, the highest form of the worship is Guru. And if you have this Guru, please don't leave his feet. Catch hold of him and never leave the company of the Guru ever. See, the mind is never going to allow you to subdue yourself or be, surrender unto the Guru. You have to become submissive. And if you don't, you cannot go on your path of spirituality. Ego is going to raise, arrogance is going to come. But the only way to overcome all of this is following the ordain of the Guru. Guru's words are gospel truth. So anything that your Guru says, act on it immediately. Don't take into your self-conceit. Don't give in to your egotism. It is not going to help you. Trust me, I have gone through this journey and today I am saying this. Never lose an opportunity of listening to your Guru. Listening is a most important aspect. When your Guru says, do this, just act on it. You will not incur further karmas. The reason your Guru is saying is because he knows what is your future. Why? There is a reason. Then when you listen to your Guru, destiny will not come and attack you. And then only the Guru's grace will follow through and you will shorten your destiny and you will arrive at the destination faster than what you were to. So you will avoid lot of karmas along the path. So listen to your Guru. This is a very important thing because the Guru is not going to be with you forever. So value the time with him. Learn when he is there. Spend the time with him constructively. Don't waste giving into your pride and egoism. It is not going to take anywhere. On the contrary, it is only going to take you to a doomsday. Himself, the Supreme Brahman, even Sri Krishna, caught the feet of Guru Sandipani and has said, when the Sadguru is remembered, that I, that is Narayana, I am pleased. Exactly. This is the powerful lesson which Lord Sri Krishna himself has taught. He has also taught that when he was in the Krishna avatar, he had his Guru Sandipani. And Lord Sri Krishna, though being the master of this universe, the supreme personality of Godhead, he himself set an example of why serving the Guru is so important. Why it is so important to, learn under the tutelage of the master. Even if the divine comes, they will still have to go through their Guru. So this is what even Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna is teaching here. I hope you understand the importance of a Guru. Do not take it so lightly. Do not take it for granted. I'm telling you this. Don't take it. Ask me about it. It is a boon to get the Guru in your life. Value it. Live it today. Make the best of your ability to learn to evolve on the path faster. And when you do that, Lord Shri Krishna himself is pleased with you. And there is no difference between Lord Shri Krishna and the Guru. They are one and the same. And he has explained this very well. Every scripture of his, be it Bhagavad Gita or be it Srimad Bhagavatam or Uddhav Gita, this is what he's continuously telling. Don't give in to your mind. Control your mind. 1,000 times would I like that the Sadguru's praises be sung rather than mine. Such is the excellence and profound significance of a Sadguru. Yes, here Lord Shri Krishna again is saying, you have to sing 1,000 times the profound praises of the Sadguru than himself, because that is the highest that you can ever achieve. So sing the glories of the Guru and understand, go deeper into it. Who is this Guru? Guru is not just a physical body. It is a principle. It is a tattva. And the Gurus manifest so that they can take you and guide you on the path of spiritual. They can show you what is the truth is all about, how to attain God, without which you can never attain God. So sing these glories of the great Sadguru in your life. And if you have one, hold very dearly to your heart. Cherish them. Make your best use of them in this life and every life of yours. He who turns his back to Guru worship is truly a wretched sinner who has to suffer the torture of journeys between births and death. He ruins every prospect of self-upliftment. Exactly the point. I hope you understand this verse. This is a very important verse. When you turn your back on your Guru, you will have to face a wretched life of yours. You are actually cutting your own feet by not going on the path of self-upliftment, which would be a big opportunity that you have, but you're losing it, giving in to your egotism and your mind. Don't do that. And today, if you have your Guru, please spend time with him, learn. It is not just learning. You have to implement, you have to imbibe that lesson, you have to follow and live that lesson. Because it is very easy to fall out, but it is very difficult to rise above. So use this opportunity. You know what? This material world, when we get caught in that, the mire of all the things that's happening, we're running behind the work, we are running behind wanting to earn money, children, disease, you name it. Every day, have you seen the rat race people run? There's no peace. They don't even have that satisfaction of, being themselves. They have to constantly keep fulfilling the desires one after the other, continuously. There is no stop to it. There is a way. Only when you can surrender to the Guru, only when you can take the name of the divine, that is the only path for you to redeem yourself. There is no other path here. Again a birth, again death. Wandering between the two has been our lot. Therefore, listen. Let us listen to the Guru's story and attain self-deliverance. Stories which casually come from the saints' lips can open up the knots of ignorance and become our preservers in the greatest of calamities. Hence, let us store them up in our hearts. What trying times are ahead, we know not, nor what forces will be at work. For all this is Allah Mia's sport, and his loving devotees are but spectators in it. Without possessing the power of wisdom, I still got an all-powerful Guru like Sai Samarth. Should this be considered as due to my powerful destiny? No, indeed. This too is a sport of his. See, without the divine's grace, without the divine himself pulling you towards him, first of all, you can't even reach there. It is only at the perfect timing you're brought to him. The Guru finds you. See, there's a very interesting way how the Guru finds you. People think that they find the Guru and they are seeking the Guru. It doesn't work like that. Most important is, first, you need to have a human birth. Second, your innermost being should desire that I want to know myself. Your innermost, there should be a burning desire from your innermost being. And the third thing is the grace of the God. Only when these three things come together will the Guru find you. You don't find the Guru. So if you have one, please consider yourself you're the most luckiest one and be very grateful to that and use that opportunity to the highest of your ability. Don't lose it. It's very easy to lose. That's why they say it's very difficult to evolve on the path of sattva or even the goodness. It is very difficult to evolve to being a divine. It is very easy to fall down. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's not so easy to get that grace, and when you have it, please hold it tight. Without possessing the power of wisdom, I still got an all-powerful guru like Sai Samarth. This too is a sport office. That's exactly what he's saying. And now I have stated the purpose of this book. I have also narrated the assurance I have received from him, in which context Baba guided us about his true nature and how he should be worshipped. In the next chapter, O listeners, you will hear as to how Sri Sai Samarth first appeared in Shirdi. And all of you, young and old, keep aside for a moment your worldly cares and listen, you artless, trusting ones, to this extraordinary story of Sai. Although he was quite unruffled and unaffected as an incarnation of God, this Sai enacted different roles, engaging himself in the worldly life as an ordinary man, subject to the influence of Maya. He whose holy feet can be meditated upon by the short mantra Samarth Sai, and who moves the strings for the deliverance of his devotees from the worldly life, his stories are most purifying and sacred. To sum up, most holy is this life of Sai. He who reads it and he who listens to it are both blessed. Today, you and me are both of us blessed. So let us be very thankful for this wonderful opportunity that Sai Baba has given us. For their hearts will be purified. When the stories are lovingly listened to, the worldly sorrows will be dispelled. Sai, the compassionate one, will be propitiated and pure absolute knowledge will appear. Sloth, an inattentive wandering mind, attachment to sense objects, and indulgence of senses, these are impediments to attentive listening. Push these obstacles away and the listening will give you pleasure. I'm going to read this once more because you need to understand what you need to do. Sloth. You're going to feel lazy like a sloth bear. Your mind is going to say, oh, it's so boring. Can I just sleep? What is the rubbish she's talking? Oh, same thing she's repeating over and over and over again. Baba is also saying the same thing. You think there are some dumb people to say this? No, there is a reason. Because your mind is an idiot. Your mind thinks no end of itself. It thinks it's not too much. Your mind needs to be told repetitively the same thing a million times before it gets an understanding. And that is why here it is being repeated. And inattentive, your mind is going to be inattentive. You know, there's attention, we say the span of attention of a human being is too less. We don't have time. The moment you listen a little bit and your mind has already taken you into different subjects, it's giving you 70 mm pictures of different things. You're not even here, you're already gone. So please don't be inattentive. Tell your mind, shut up, listen. Keep telling it, listen, focus. Wandering mind, yeah, it's going to go here, there. It's a monkey. Mind is a monkey. So you need to learn to control it. You need to, channel it. So focus. Attachment to sense objects and indulgence of the senses. Yeah, it's going to always give, go here, thither, wander. You will feel hungry, you will feel thirsty, you want to sleep. Everything will happen when you sit for the satsang. And this is but a very common phenomena. So please, listen. Listening is a very important art. It doesn't come so easily. There are only very few people who can actually listen. You only hear. These days you don't even hear. Because the attention span of any mind is, I think, not more than 30 seconds. Because you don't have that focus. Today, human beings have lost self-control completely, giving into their mind and every other thing. Stop that. Take this opportunity to listen. Listen with full intently, with full focus, ekagrit, oneness. That is what you need to carry. These are the impediments to attentive listening. So know that when your mind, be conscious of what your mind is doing. Have that awareness. When your mind does that, bring it back. So this is why his Baba is already saying it is going to do this. So listen carefully. Otherwise you will lose out. Push these obstacles away and listening will give you pleasure. We need no religious vows or ritualistic conclusions, nor are fasts or mortifications of flesh necessary. Even pilgrimages and journeys undertaken on their account are not required. Listen to this life story, and that is enough. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything. But just listening to this Guru's Leelas will redeem you from every karma. You will visit all the holy places in this entire scripture. That is the truth. You will be taken to that. You will be teleported there if you have that sort of single pointed devotion. But that is the kind of manan you should do. That is the kind of ekagrat you need to have. So please do that. Listen, and you shall attain everything right here. This is what Baba is saying, and his word is gospel truth. Know that. But our love should be steadfast and genuine. Yes, that is the most important thing. You cannot just say, yeah, I love, but yeah, I'm busy. All that doesn't work. It has to be genuine. It has to be pure. You can't be an hypocrite. Yeah, I love Baba, but there's no but and ifs. There's nothing like that. Either you love or you don't. You can't have this wavering. You can't have these two things, yo-yo. You can't do that. Have that absolute faith, pure heart. Show your love genuinely. That you want to get redeemed. That is what you have to show. But our love should be steadfast and genuine. We should have grasped the very essence of true devotion. Only then can we attain the highest goal of human existence, that is moksha or salvation. Then the obstacle possessed by ignorance will be destroyed. We need not exert after other means. We shall listen to Sai's life story so that all karma, past and present, is exhausted without leaving a trace behind. A miser, wherever he may happen to be, has before his mind's eye day and night his buried treasure. In the same way, may Sai be present in our hearts. Absolutely so true. We human beings are constantly worried about our money. Oh, how much money we have. How do I protect it? You're always thinking about it. A miser is going to keep thinking about his money and all the wealth. He can't sleep also. He's lost his sleep. Can you think like that about the God? And that's good enough that you'll be redeemed. That is all you need. So do that. So here we end the third chapter, which is the purpose of the book, Baba's approbation. And so we'll to all. Here ends the third chapter of Sri Sai Samartha Satcharitra, called the purpose of the book, Baba's approbation, as inspired by the saints and the virtuous and composed by his devotee Hemad Pant. We still have 25 minutes left, so we'll do the next chapter. Chapter 4, Descent of Sai Samarth in Shirdi. In the two chapters following the invocation of the divine, the object of this book has been stated and for whom it is meant, and its relationship with the subject of the book has also been sufficiently explained. Now listen to the reason why the saints have to descend on this earth, or in other words, what is this difficult task that necessitates their incarnating in human form on this earth. O my revered listeners, I am but a speck of dust from your feet, and I am not ashamed of entreating you for the favor of your attention. Delightful indeed is the life story of a saint, and in that this is the nectar sweet story of Sai's life. May his faithful devotees drink of it deeply and be filled with joy. When the Brahmins disregard the rules of conduct laid down by the Varnashram and the Shudras aspire to become the Brahmins, when the Acharyas, the religious heads, are shown disrespect to the extent of trying to castigate them, when no one follows the religious precepts, everyone regarding himself as learned and wise, and each one trying to score over the other, but no one prepared to listen to anyone. This is when the unrighteousness prevails in this world. That's what it means. When there is a total disregard to what is proper or improper for use in general or as food, and also a disregard to the code of conduct prescribed by the religion, so that Brahmins themselves consume meat and spirituous liquors openly in front of everyone, and under the cover of dharma perpetuate oppression and tyranny, stoking the embers of hatred between religious sects, all of which exasperates the common folk. So when there is a dharma prevailing on this earth, that is when the divine manifests. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna has said, when there is unrighteousness, I am born to establish dharma. That is the true purpose, and to impart the knowledge to those aspirants and the devotees and the true devotees of the divine, and not to everybody. When the Brahmins shirk the daily rituals of Sandhya Snana, and the Orthodox tired of performing ceremonies and rituals for the propitiation of gods, and the yogis neglect yogic practice of chanting the name, meditation and penance, then the time is ripe for the appearance of the saints on this earth. When men look upon wealth, honor, wife and children as the only source of happiness and turn away from the spiritual path, then it is that the saints appear on this earth. Actually, in this, there's a very beautiful saying. Baba has always said that wealth is to establish dharma. This verse simply means that we human beings think that whatever wealth or whatever the good things that we are bestowed upon is only for I, me, myself, my home, my family, my children. We don't care about the world at all. That is not the right thing. Wealth is to establish dharma, means the reason you have been given is so that you can give to those needy, those deserving in this world. You need to share what is given to you. But today, if you look at it, everybody's greedy. They're just hoarding. It's just I, me, myself. That is adharma. You can't have adharma prevail. So that time the divine manifests, when you're actually not following the code of conduct, when you're not following the scriptures, when everything is gone haywire. The Brahmins cannot drink or eat meat. You cannot do those rules. You cannot break the rules. It has been prescribed in the Vedas and Shastras by the divine himself. Who the hell you think you are to break those rules? And that is when the divine comes again to put this world on the path of dharma. You think this coronavirus is just like that? No, it's a divine leela to tell the world, stop, you need to pause and then rethink how everything has to be rechanneled in a proper righteous manner. That is why today even this coronavirus is prevailing. It is not that it is causing harm to anybody. We see it, something bad is happening. No, everything happens for good alone. And that is something you need to understand. It's the way of how divine works. You don't know the divine power. When people fail to attain the highest goal of human life due to laxity in observing dharma, then for the revival of dharma, the saints incarnate in human form. When people dissipate their energies in physical pleasures of the palate and sex to the detriment of health, longevity and prosperity, and miss the chance of self-upliftment altogether, then the saints appear on the earth. For preservation of varnashrama dharma and eradication of unrighteousness, for the protection of the poor, the meek and the suffering is the incarnation of the saints on earth. I think I've already said this. It is to put the dharma back on track. It is to help you understand your purpose of life is not to have sexual pleasures, physical pleasures and so many other sensual things that you keep doing in this world. No. I want to drink, I want to eat, I want to marry meek and then, abuse the meek and the poor. Is that what you've been made for? Where is all your knowledge gone? Is that what you've learned? No, we have not learned that. Our dharma doesn't teach that. So why is the goodness thrown out of window? Today, people have no tolerance towards anybody. Everybody is so mean. They don't know how to speak good words. Kindness is got out of the window. There's no love amongst people. People are fighting against each other. Why do we need this? Why can't we be good to everybody? This is what you need to understand. We are here to serve the purpose of the divine. We need to be nice to everybody. Be good. Give love. Don't forget that. Don't misbehave. And you don't know what will hit you when you are going way out of too much of control, and then the divine himself will take this form and then you're going to get your lessons. So don't misbehave with anybody. Be good to everybody. Be kind. Show compassion. It's very important. Essentially, the saints themselves are emancipated souls engaged in the uplift of the meek and the lowly all the time. Their avatar, incarnation, is only for the benefit of others, for they have no selfish interests. They lay down firmly a firm foundation of renunciation around the shaky structure of worldly life to erect the temple of spirituality, thus redeeming the devotees effortlessly. Absolutely so true. These days we don't even want to go to temple. Forget about temple. We don't even want to worship in our own home. We think, oh, that's a big task to do. We forget what is our dharma. If you look at it earlier, we would celebrate festivals so beautifully. We would make all the delicacies and we'll invite everyone. You know what? Today we want to just go give money. We are using our money power to buy. Where is our tradition and culture gone? Why are we forgetting who we are? Where is our roots gone? Why should we not focus on who we are and how we have come up? Why are we adapting to modern ways? Why are we losing on our beautiful culture, that God-given culture? Why are we forgetting all of this goodness? And is that what we are teaching our future generations? Wake up. This is a wake-up call for you. They accomplished their religious mission of the revival of dharma, thereby fulfilling their purpose, after which they give up their mortal coil. They only come for a period of time so that they can save this world and they can save the devotees and establish the dharma back again. They have nothing else to attain in this world. But a human being doesn't understand these things. And if you're listening to me, please know that you're meant to get this knowledge and you're blessed. Jivatma, individual soul, is the supreme spirit or God himself, who brings joy to the whole world, and God is the Guru himself, who confers happiness and weal. He is also the abode of transcendental love. He is the constant, eternal, and the undifferentiated whole. He is beyond space, time, and causality, and is indivisible. Speech in all its four stages, Vispara, Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari, has failed to describe him. Nor have the Vedas, with all their wisdom, been able to do so, and have accepted defeat under the cover of Neti Neti. Not this, not this. Yes, this is so very true. You try as much as describing the divine. You cannot. Your mind is incapable. You're only a minuscule in this entire spectrum. Even the great sages and the saints have lost against trying to describe this divine. Who is this divine? What is the power of him? You can never ever fathom, because he is inscrutable, he is unfathomable and incomprehensible. You cannot ever comprehend this divine. You just need to be devoted, have faith, and you will be redeemed. That is all you need to have. The Shat Darshanas and the Shat Shastras are shamed into silence. The Puranas and the Kirtans too are exhausted in their attempts to description. Ultimately, the only means that is left is to make obeisance, surrendering to him with all your actions, speech and thought. This is exactly what I was saying. So please just surrender. Just be in love with the divine. That is all you need. You don't need anything more than that. And just follow your path. Do your duties to your best of your ability. And be good to everybody. Show love. Goodness is all that is very important in this world. Listening to the story of such a saint as Sai, which is filled with his marvelous leelas and sacred tales, may our ears be purified. He is the moving impulse of all the sense organs and has given me the inspiration to write this book. It is he on whose prompting this life story has become so effortlessly, in an orderly manner. He dwells in the hearts of all and moves at will in this universe, within and without. Why then should I worry needlessly? As one recollects his many excellent qualities, one after the other, the mind stands still. How then can words ever describe him? Absolute silence is the only way to describe. The nose smells the fragrance of a flower. The skin experiences the hot and cold touch. The eyes feast on beauty. Each brings pleasure to itself. The tongue, no doubt, experiences the sweetness of sugar, but cannot convey the experience to others. In the same way, I know not how to describe the virtues of Sai. Only when the Sadguru himself so wishes, he will inspire his own chosen ones to describe most aptly and in great detail that which is otherwise beyond descriptions. This is so true. Today, I am extremely grateful to my Guruji, my Krishna Guruji, for giving me this opportunity, and Sai himself for being able to read this Parayan, and whatever the words are coming are of his wisdom. I'll be ever grateful, and my humble obeisance unto their lotus feet for this wonderful opportunity. And thank you all for joining me at all times, and this is a wonderful opportunity. These words are not superficial, a merely formality, but spring from the feelings from the heart. Hence, I crave your respectful attention. As Gangapur and Narsimhawadi, as Audambar and Billavadi, so is Shirdi a famous place for pilgrimage on the banks of the holy river Godavari. Oh, for the sacred banks of the Godavari and her holy waters. Oh, for the cool breezes that play on her surface. These dispel the darkness of ignorance from the worldly life indeed. The greatness of the Godavari, which is so well known in the world, is most impressive. Great saints, one more eminent than the other, came from there. Many are the places of pilgrimage on the banks of this Gomati which are described in the Puranas, the water from which not only washes away the sins but also liberates from the sorrows of this life when drunk or bathed in. It is very beautifully said that Ganga, when you dip yourself in Ganga, that she washes away your sins. Actually, that's not the way it is. When the great sages and the gurus and the sadgurus, the saints, dip their feet in the holy Ganga, is when Ganga is redeemed of her sins. And this is the truth. It is the holy feet of the gurus that you need to hold on. It is their feet. The tirtha from their feet is the ultimate redeeming factor, the purifying one. And if you ever get the tirtha, please be very selfish and have it. Don't think, oh, it's somebody's dirty feet. No, it is God's feet and you will be blessed. Many are the places of pilgrimage. Yes, I finished this. The self-same Godavari, as she winds her way by Kopargaon in the Kopargaon Taluka subdivision in the Ahmednagar district, guides the pilgrim to Shirdi. Crossing over to the opposite bank of Godavari, as the Tonga enters Neemgaon, which is about 60 miles away from the river bank, Shirdi comes within sight, right in front. Nivriti, Nyandev, Muktabai, Namdev, Janabai, Gora, Gonai, Tukaram, Narahari, Narsibai, Sajan, Kasi, Kasai, Swata Mali. These have been saints of yore, and saints there have been even in the recent past. These virtuous saints have regarded the world as one family and have been the refuge of the afflicted and the suffering. The great saint Ramdas left the banks of the Godavari to appear on the banks of the river Krishna for the salvation of the world. In the same way, Sri Sai, the greatest among yogis, appeared near Godavari by the great good fortune of Shirdi and for the deliverance of the world. Paras, or the philosopher's stone, turns a piece of iron into gold by its touch, and the analogy of Paras money is used to describe the saints. But so remarkably are the ways of the saints that they transform their devotees completely, raising them to their own exalted state. And this is so very true. When I met my Guruji, I didn't know anything about spirituality. I didn't know what spiritual meant. I was given into my own egotism. I was arrogant. Many other things. I had my own tendencies. I had my own qualities, which was not conducive. But my Guruji transformed me from a Rajasic to a Sattvic being and a divine being, and continued to evolve on that path. His touch is good enough to transfer you. He is that Paras money. His one touch can make miracles. It can bring back the entire divinity in you. It is so powerful. All your sins redeemed in that one touch, in that 1 second. That is the power of these great beings. Not just a touch, just this look. The grace flows. There is so much love. There is so much of energy gets transferred. That is the power of this great being. You know, people think that only those who wear those beautiful fancy clothes are called the great gurus. Today's world don't understand, and they are not capable of recognizing who a real spiritual master is. The real gurus do not have any garbs. They don't don on fancy clothes. They don't have a costume that they wear. They will appear absolutely as an ordinary human being. You need the grace and the goodness to experience the divinity. And today that is what it is. And always seek or pray to the divine that please grant me the grace that I am able to recognize such divine beings whenever I come across them. That is very important, because they will never reveal themselves to you. Transcending all distinctions, to see the Brahman reflected in the entire universe, animate and inanimate, to regard the glory of this creation as the undivided glory of Brahman. And in this way, when the true knowledge, the realization that the whole universe is nothing but I am that I am, comes, who can then describe the glorious feeling of joy that it will bring? He, the seeker, will attain to a high state of purity and goodness. When such oneness of the self with the universe is experienced, so that nothing is known which is other than the self, then to whom can one be hostile, and of whom afraid? As Damaji at Mangalveda, Samarth Ramdas at Sajjangad, Narsimha Saraswati at Wadi, so was Sai Samarth, the saint of Shirdi. Extremely difficult to accomplish, to cross over, as this worldly life is. He who has conquered it is adorned by peace, who is the treasure of knowledge personified. A retreat for the Vaishnavites, the most benevolent among the benevolent. Karna, incarnate in bestowing spiritual wisdom, such as this Sai, the quintessence of truth. Without attachment to the transient, absorbed totally in the self and intent on attaining the highest goal of human life, how can this state of his being be described? The worldly state holds for him no prosperity or poverty, nor does he rejoice or grieve for the pleasures of the other world. His inner being is crystal clear as a mirror, the speech always shower of nectar. He, in whose eyes a king and pauper, the poor and the meek are all equal, who knows not respect or disrespect towards his own self. He is himself the all-pervading God. Yes, this is the soul, this is the truth. He doesn't care about whether you're a king, you're a pauper, or you're a poor, or you're rich. He doesn't care about your money, what you bring. He only sees your heart. Everyone is equal to him. He gives the same grace, but you need to be deserving to accept that grace. God's grace is on everybody. We always say, no, the human being have a very interesting way of saying, God, please grant me your grace. I need your grace. Please know that God's grace is on everybody. It is you who have to take it. He's not going to come and spoon feed you. Where is your effort then? It is your love. He's ever loving you. Where is that he has given up on you? That is why he manifests, so that he can redeem you. That is his greatness. That is his love for his devotees. That is his love for his people. And that is his love for his creation. He moved and conversed with the common folks and watched with them the dancing and gesticulating of the Muralis. He nodded appreciatively as he listened to the songs and ghazals, and yet his samadhi was unperturbed. Allah's name constantly on his lips is the sign to recognize him. In the dark night of all beings, he awoke to the light, and what was day to other beings was night for him. Inwardly, he was as tranquil as the sea. That is why we call him Athanga Sagar. He is the limitless ocean. He can accommodate everything inside of him, but yet he's so full of everything, and he's always ever lost in himself. He's not perturbed over what's happening around him, but he's in the blissful state. He's the Sachidanand. To which ashram, stage of life he belonged, was something beyond human speculation, for he followed no code of conduct laid down for the specific ashrams. Usually he does not leave his place, and yet he knows everything that is happening everywhere or anywhere. Though outwardly he held a splendid darbar royal court regularly and related 1,001 stories, yet inwardly he was committed to silence. Leaning against the wall, he would stand and would go on his rounds morning and afternoon to the Lendi or Chavdi, yet his state of self-absorption was constant. I know not in which birth, on what occasion, at what time, and in what manner I must have undertaken penance that Sai should have taken me under his wing thus. Wicked from birth that I am, how can I ever claim this to be the fruit of my penance? Nay, it is Sai himself who loves the meek and the lowly, and surely this is nothing but his grace. Though born a Siddha, his behavior was that of a Sadhaka or seeker. By nature, unconceited and very humble, he strove to please all. As Eknath Eknath to Paitan, Jnaneshwar to Alandi, so did Sri Sai bring glory to the soil of Shirdi. Blessed are the stones and the blades of grass in Shirdi, which without effort kissed Baba's feet every day and held the sacred dust from his feet on their head. Shirdi itself is our Pandarpur, Shirdi our Jagannath Puri, our Dwarka, Shirdi alone is Gaya, Kashi, Vishveshwara, and even our Rameshwar is in Shirdi. Shirdi alone is our Badri Kedar, our Nasik, Triambakeshwar, Ujjain, Mahakaleshwar, and also Mahabaleshwar Gokarna. Sai's sacred company in Shirdi is our Agam, scriptures on which temple worship is mainly founded, and Nigam, Dharma Shastras. So, where the sages live, that is where it becomes the holy place. It is all the Tirtha Yatras in this world that you can ever visit. That land becomes the holy place. The Guru's feet, where it is, that is where you got to take refuge. Ashram is which means come and do shram, put efforts to evolve on the path of spirituality. With this, we stop here on the 4th chapter. We will continue tomorrow. See you again tomorrow evening. And thank you for being with me today. Om Shri Mahaganapate Namaha. Om Shri Gurudev Datta. Om Shri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Digambara Digambara Shripad Vallabha Digambara. Om Shri Krishna Gurunathanatha Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Devi Durgaya Namaha. Om Shri Krishna Arpanam Namastu. Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum.